I think that the dose and the timing matters, right? So
Sure
this
does.
early morning light, let's say that we've been talking about, where we have this higher concentration of this blue light, the sun is not as strong. Typically, it's like that 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. sort of range where the sun gets higher and higher in the sky. The solar, and we have more intensity. Let's say you were saying before, as your shadow gets shorter and shorter, I would say a time to, if you can, avoid being outside for extended periods of time, especially if you're not going to be
Yeah.
wearing sunscreen and sunglasses, as we've been talking about. And
Unless you're somebody whose ancestors come from Colombia or, the Andes Mountains or Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, and then you live in Detroit or something like that, then in that case, it would be really smart to be out more in the middle of the day because people with darker skin take 6 times longer to make the same amount of vitamin D as someone with the lightest skin, or vice versa. Someone with the lightest skin makes vitamin D 6 times faster. And the reason is just because the skin is far more translucent when it's lighter. And again, that's great if you live in Ireland and there's no sun. It'd be really, 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 really bad if you lived in sub-Saharan Africa, which is, I love to be in tropical places like Bali and Costa Rica, but I have to be extremely careful about my sun exposure. And sometimes I get too hot, I can't even go outside. So it all depends on people's context. Somebody with much darker skin would benefit more from getting out when the sun is stronger if they live in a place where the sun is generally weaker than the equator or the tropics. But someone with light skin who is living in Florida or in Costa Rica or Bali or anywhere like that, or even Georgia or even Philly in the summer is very strong sun, should be careful. I grew up in the suburbs of Philly, that's why I bring it up. But you should just be aware and be careful and not overdose for sure. Like burning, bad idea.
yeah, and to throw in an example there, my ancestors are Lebanese and Portuguese, so I have Mediterranean ancestors, and I live now in Toronto, Canada. So we have, so you take those, you take that skin that is very used to being in more of a hotter Mediterranean climate for most of the year. And then you plop those genes, you plop that melanin, that capacity for production in an environment like Toronto, and I have to work harder to get my sun. And
Yeah.
I've done genetics and to look at my vitamin D binding capacity, and it's much lower, partially because someone with my constitution, our genes sort of expect, based on where I'm from, that I am going to be in a sunnier environment. So there's always going to be that capacity to be able to bind vitamin D. So your point
Yeah.
is well taken.